Most people don't make it through their spiritual awakening. Not because it's fatal, but because it undoes them. It cracks open everything they thought was solid, exposes what's been hidden for years, maybe lifetimes. And once it's out, there's no stuffing it back in. It's not some blissful moment wrapped in white light and incense. It's chaos. It's the unraveling. It's standing in the mirror and realizing with a gut punch of clarity that the person staring back at you isn't real, or at least not whole. You pull back, you try to numb it, distract yourself, go back to normal. But normal doesn't fit anymore. It's like trying to crawl back into a skin that no longer belongs to you. Here's the uncomfortable truth no one puts on the spiritual brochures. Awakening? It doesn't start with freedom. It starts with destruction. It tears down the illusions you built your life on, the identities you wore like armor, the stories you told to keep the deeper pain at bay. It doesn't politely ask you to evolve. It kicks the damn door down, and the silence that follows, that deadening, deafening quiet, feels unbearable. This is the part people don't talk about, the part you don't see on Instagram, the psychic dismemberment, the soul quake, the internal screaming while the world around you keeps sipping lattes and scrolling TikTok. You were told awakening is light, and sure, eventually it is, but that's only the surface. Underneath, there's shadow, there's grief, there's 1,000 tiny deaths before the birth. Because the moment you see through the veil, the world stops making sense. Not in a poetic way, in a what the hell does anything mean kind of way. Your goals feel empty. Your beliefs unravel. Your identity dissolves like sand in water. Carl Jung didn't exaggerate when he said there is no coming to consciousness without pain. And let's be real, awakening doesn't arrive like a cozy epiphany. It comes like a crisis, the kind that knocks the wind out of you and leaves you crawling towards something you can't even name. You start realizing the life you built wasn't a lie because you were fake. It was a lie because it had to be. A protective shell, a necessary illusion while your soul waited patiently for its moment. And then, boom, that moment arrives. And there's no going back. What used to thrill you now feels flat. What used to make you feel seen now leaves you hollow. Even the people you loved may feel like echoes from a life that isn't yours anymore. And there you are, alone, with the voice inside your head quieter than ever, or louder depending on the day. But it no longer feels like you, or at least not the you used to know. This is ego death. Not the metaphorical kind people toss around in workshops. The real disorienting kind where you feel like you're dissolving. Like your mind is eating itself. Like you're slipping. And if you resist, oh, it hurts. If you fight, it'll break you harder. If you surrender, yeah, it'll still hurt. But now the pain has a purpose. You'll start to see what's been underneath all along, something raw, wild, ancient. Something that remembers who you are beneath the conditioning. And it's not going to let you fall asleep again. Not like before. The self you've known. It doesn't go quietly. It kicks, screams, tells you you're crazy, depressed, losing it. And maybe you are. But maybe, just maybe, you're finally waking up. See the old map, the one you were handed as a kid. It was never designed to lead you home. It was meant to lead you away, toward fitting in, performing, succeeding, earning love through achievement. But no one taught you how to fall apart with grace, how to descend, how to meet the parts of you you buried just to survive. So when the descent comes, it feels like dying. And in a way it is. But it's also a rebirth, a sacred tearing down, a holy collapse. You'll be asked to let go of labels, of masks, of all the borrowed names you answered to. And here's the kicker. If you try to bring the old into the new, it will rot. Literally rot. Because it doesn't belong in the next frequency. Awakening doesn't upgrade your life. It incinerates it. And waits to see if you're brave enough to rise from the ashes. Not polished but raw. Not fixed but real. Still, most people turn back. And it's hard to blame them. Comfort is seductive. So is certainty. So is pretending. The wilderness, this unknown, untamed part of awakening, is terrifying. It doesn't speak logic. It doesn't offer guarantees. It just asks you to feel. To stay with yourself when it's excruciating. To meet the mirror when it reflects back your shadow. The rage, the fear, the manipulative parts you learned in order to survive. And instead of judging them, you invite them to sit down. You say, I see you, and I'm not turning away this time. But don't kid yourself, this is no soft candlelit moment. The shadow doesn't show up with tea and biscuits. It arrives in triggers, in heartbreak, in the ways you sabotage your own joy. It lives in your jealousy, your addictions, your defensiveness. And until you face it, you're stuck. Because awakening isn't the end of suffering. It's the beginning of conscious suffering. Of feeling it all, without flinching. Of owning your part. Of standing naked in the truth with no clue what happens next. And that's why it's rare. That's why few make it through. Because it asks everything of you. Your grief, your rage, your silence, your willingness to die without dying. To lose your mind so your soul can speak. To collapse and still whisper yes. And that yes, that's the beginning. Not of the end, but of something real. Something that was always there, waiting beneath the noise. The descent doesn't care how strong you are. It's not impressed by how much shadow work you've done, how many mantras you can recite, or how well you can pretend to be okay. It just asks one thing of you: surrender. And that right there is what sends the ego into panic mode. Because surrender means letting go of control, and the ego, it was built to control. Control the narrative. Control how you're seen. Control the emotion before it gets messy. The ego's job has always been to keep you safe, or at least make you look safe enough to survive. But the soul doesn't care about safety. It came here to become, to bloom, break open, and remember. And becoming isn't a path paved with affirmations and incense. It's messy, violent, sometimes, sacred, always. And it starts with unmaking. Unmaking the armor, unmaking the role, unmaking everything that was never really you. Just costumes passed down by fear, culture, conditioning. Only then can something true, something unfiltered and ancient, begin to emerge. Not driven by fear, not shaped by performance, but born from essence. And that essence, it doesn't come crashing in, it waits, quietly, patiently, until the noise fades, until the game loses its thrill, until you're too tired to keep pretending. And then, it whispers, not in words but in longing, that ache in your chest you try to name, that restlessness that doesn't go away no matter how many goals you check off. It's not depression, it's not failure, it's not weakness, it's the call, the one that comes when your soul is done waiting, when you're ready, even if you don't feel ready, to leave behind a life that was never really yours. But here's the hard truth. Most people ignore it. They feel the ache, then stuff it with productivity. They bury it under calendars, obligations, performance. Because answering that call, it cost you everything built on sand. And no one warns you what that feels like. How lonely it is. How surreal. The first phase of awakening isn't some glowing expansion, it's exile. Exile from the familiar, from the persona you curated, from the validation you didn't even know you needed so badly. And in that exile, the pull to go back is strong. To numb again, to perform again, to pretend it wasn't real. But you can't, because once you've seen the truth, once you've felt your own soul, you can't unsee it. You can't forget what your body now remembers. So you walk forward, or maybe crawl, through sleepless nights and mornings thick with unnamed grief, through relationships that suddenly feel like echoes, even if no one's done anything wrong. Welcome to the cocoon, the void, the space between no longer and not yet. It feels like death because something is dying. The old you, the constructed you, the you who lived on borrowed dreams and second-hand expectations. And here, in this stillness, in this stretch of dark, that's where the real work begins. That's where the soul starts speaking in symbols and triggers. Not gently. It shows up in your sharpest reactions, in old pain rising without invitation, in grief that has no clear source. And you'll want to run. Of course you will. You were trained to run from pain, to label it, medicate it, reframe it, until it fits a narrative that doesn't make people uncomfortable. But awakening isn't polite. It doesn't give a damn about narratives. It's not about bypassing the pain. It's about entering it, sitting with it, learning to breathe where you used to break. And somewhere in that holy discomfort you start to realize the pain isn't the enemy. It's the portal, that anger, that jealousy, that sadness you tried to fix. They were never flaws. They were messages, each one holding a sliver of your truth, the truth you buried to survive. And as you listen, really listen, something softens. You begin to feel compassion, not just for others, but for you, for the version of you that never felt safe, for the one who learned to earn love instead of receive it, for the one who kept performing when all she wanted was to be. And that compassion, it's the beginning of something radical, because you stop needing to be healed to be worthy. You stop needing to perform your growth. You stop needing to be understood to know your own truth. You realize awakening isn't about becoming better. It's about becoming real, messy, inconsistent, brilliantly imperfect, human, divine, both always. And from that honesty, not confidence, not perfection, you find your footing. You find truth. You stop chasing applause. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop molding yourself to fit into rooms that were never built for your soul. Because now you know you are your home. Not because you figured it all out, but because you stopped leaving yourself in the moments that hurt the most. And that's freedom. That's what most never touch. Not because they're broken, but because they were never shown how to stay. To stay with discomfort. To stay through the storm. To stay with the soul until it opens its mouth and speaks. But you're staying. And in that staying, something real is being born. Not shiny, not perfect, but grounded, aligned, unapologetically alive. And that's what makes you unbreakable, because now you see. So much of what you built was never truly yours. Those dreams, most were inherited, passed down by fear, by culture, by generations who confused survival with wholeness. And survival asks you to shrink, to shut up, to smile when you're screaming inside, to trade your soul for acceptance. But you're not surviving anymore. You're awakening. And that comes with fire, holy rage, the kind that burns through every mask and whispers, "I was never meant to sleep through this life." You start speaking differently, not louder but clearer. You say no without guilt, yes without apology. You stop needing to be decoded. You stop asking for permission. And the world, oh, the world won't know what to do with you. Because now you're untamed, unedited, unshrinkable. A frequency that exposes the unconscious just by walking into the room. This is embodiment, not posting about healing, not quoting enlightenment, but living it, breathing it, letting it shape you in every moment you choose not to abandon yourself again. And no, it's not glamorous. It's not always poetic, but it's real, and it's yours, and it's enough. Sometimes it doesn't look like transcendence. Sometimes it looks like tears on a steering wheel. Not because something is wrong, but because your nervous system is finally rewriting the story, finally letting go, finally remembering. Sometimes it looks like people slipping away, people you loved, people you would have sworn were permanent, but they were wired for your silence, not your truth. And when your truth got too loud, they vanished. Sometimes it means grieving a life you built with your whole heart, and still outgrowing it, because the you who built it doesn't exist anymore. That's the hidden cost of becoming. You lose more than illusions. You lose identities. You lose reference points, roles, even language. And nothing rushes in to replace it. At least not right away. Instead, you enter the void, a vast holy in between where the old can't follow, and the new hasn't landed yet. You wake up and feel untethered. You try to explain, and your words sound thin, like whispers underwater. You try to plan, and life meets you with a shrug. Because this phase, it's not about doing, it's about listening. Listening to the quiet hum beneath your chaos. The whisper that says, let go. Let go of the 5-year plan. Let go of who you thought you'd be by now. Let go of the need to wrap this in a bow. Let it undo you. Let it strip you of what was never really yours. Let it hollow you out until only the essential remains. And what remains? It's not the persona. It's not the polished version you shared online. It's presence. It's breath. It's the simple, trembling truth of being alive right now without needing to justify it. And in that space, you don't find yourself, you meet yourself. Not the someday self, not the idealized high-vibe, fully healed self. The raw one, the real one. The one who's been quietly waiting under all the layers, wild, wounded, wise beyond measure, and suddenly chasing your purpose feels absurd, because you're no longer chasing, you are it, in your presence, in how you breathe through discomfort, in how you stay soft in a world that demands hardness. You stop climbing meaning like a ladder, you start walking meaning like a path. You become it in how you love, in how you fall apart honestly, in how you no longer abandon your soul just to feel safe. This is the deeper layer of awakening, not the part that's marketable, not the part that sparkles, the part that can't be taught, only lived, only felt. It's not some mountaintop moment, it's a rhythm, a pulse. A quiet returning to the self behind the performance, the self beneath the conditioning, the self beyond the story. And as you start to live from there, not visit but live, your entire frequency shifts, not with firework, but with truth, undeniable, grounded truth. You speak less but say more. You stop explaining yourself to people who never made space for you in the first place. You stop outsourcing your intuition. You stop trading your voice for validation. And something shifts. You stop searching for love because you remember you are it. It was never in the mirror, never in their approval, never in the next milestone. It was here, always. Inside the stillness you were afraid to enter. And now you begin to trust. Trust that the life aligned with your soul will find you. Trust that what falls away needed to. Trust that what remains belongs. You stop racing toward clarity. You stop begging for signs. You stop fearing the unknown, because now the unknown feels like truth. There's a strength that comes from surviving your own collapse, but it doesn't show itself in applause. It's not performative. It's quiet. It's sovereign. The kind of strength that doesn't need to be seen, because it knows. You don't move through the world looking for proof you matter. You walk as proof, for your soul, for the part of you that remembers every night you almost gave up. This kind of strength is forged in fire, in the nights you weren't sure you'd make it, in the silence that didn't comfort but changed you. Now you don't need to survive, you get to live, simple, honest, whole. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped abandoning yourself just to be palatable. You stopped building relationships on fear, stopped selling your aliveness for praise, stopped watering yourself down to fit. You've met yourself too deeply to lie again, and what once felt like exile now feels like grace, because it brought you here, to this stillness, to this truth, to this quiet knowing that no one can take. You see others now, still running, still performing, still aching for belonging in places that won't offer it, and you don't judge, because you remember. You carry the scar, but you also carry the light, not the blinding kind, the beckoning kind, the kind that says you can stop now, you can rest, you can come home, and some will. They'll see it in you and remember something ancient in themselves. Others won't, and that's okay, because your job was never to awaken them. It was to stay awake, to stay grounded, to stay open, to stay true. This is the revolution, not a war against the system, but a refusal to feed it with your energy. Not a call to preach, but a call to embody, to let your presence become the mirror. Not one that flatters, but one that reveals. Some will run, others will awaken, but that's not yours to manage. Yours is to remain clear, to remain real, to remain on fire, because that's what awakening becomes. Not a concept, but a power. Not something you do, but something you are. Not a surface you perform from, but a source you live from. You remember now how to rest without guilt, how to speak without shrinking, how to exist without needing to explain. Your existence isn't a question anymore. It's an answer. You don't ask, who am I supposed to be? You know, I already am. And that's the final threshold. Not becoming more, but becoming you. The wires, the messy, the holy, the human, the divine, all of it finally allowed. You're not here to escape life. You're here to inhabit it, fully, rawly, unapologetically. And that's why you made it through. Not because you had all the answers, not because you conquered awakening, but because you stayed. You stayed through the storm, through the ache, through the burning down of everything false. And in that staying, you were reborn, not into someone shinier, into someone true. Now you carry a frequency, not a performance, a presence. You're not chasing the next awakening anymore. You're living as awakens. And that's what most never reach. Not because they couldn't, but because they turned back too soon. You didn't. You turned in. You turned toward. You turned home. And now, you, not to prove, but to radiate. Not to be seen, but to be. And the world feels it. whether they know it or not. You've touched the fire, and you didn't run. Today we talked about the silent collapse that makes you whole again. Explore the unconscious with us. Subscribe so you don't miss the next videos.